Hi, everybody. Welcome. We are going to get started. Hi, I'm JP Eggers. I'm the interim dean here at Stern. I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm thrilled even more so that you're all here today because this is going to be a very exciting event. Really great opportunity for everyone here to kind of hear more about leadership, personal development, all the challenges that we face and overcome, and how that makes us kind of better people, better leaders, and help us better know ourselves. We are going to do this by hearing from two authors who are here to talk about their books today. One of those authors is Stern's own Suzy Welch, and actually I need to be careful. Suzy Welch, PhD now. She'll tell you a little bit more about this, just having defended her dissertation. So big news on that end. Suzy's talking about her book, Becoming You. And in conversation with Suzy, we'll have Coach Bill Belichick. Coach Belichick will be talking about his book, The Art of Winning. These are two leaders in this in this conversation, and I think this is incredibly important as a way to kind of help frame the lessons that they're going to talk about from their books, and kind of playing off each other and their own experiences with one another. Suzy obviously is a key member of Stern's community, an incredible contributor to what is going on here at Stern, and kind of why in many cases people are here in this room. And I got to say, as a former college athlete myself, the ability to kind of hear from someone like Bill Belichick on kind of the ways in which being an athlete and challenging yourself brings out the best in you. I know that's been very much true of me and my development, despite ending up kind of down a very different route, is a very exciting thing for me as well. With that, let me welcome our guests to the stage, and they'll be in conversation here with LinkedIn's Jesse Hempel, who is the host of the award-winning podcast Hello Monday and a senior editor-at-large at LinkedIn, who will moderate the discussion between Suzy Welch and Coach Bill Belichick. With that, thank you very much.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Jessie. I am so thrilled to be in a very special conversation tonight. I mean, folks, what's going to happen tonight is really special. We have two greats, truly greats in their craft, happening to be releasing books on the same day, sort of about the same idea, but y'all, these people do not think about winning in the same way, and we're going to get into that tonight. We have Suzy. We have Coach Belichick, and I would love to start with why we're in the same room together today, right? Because you all know each other.
We do.
A little bit.
A little.
All right.
Go ahead.
I'll tell us. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Many of my students here. Hello. Welcome. A few months ago, I told you Coach Belichick was coming, and you didn't believe me, but here he is. Bill, I think we met 25 years ago. And that's, we met my late husband, Jack, and Bill were great friends, very dear friends. And in that way, I became dear friends with Bill as well. And a few months ago, we were talking about something completely unrelated to anything. We were just catching up. And I mentioned I had a book coming out. And Bill said, I have a book coming out. And I said, what day? The one word I did not want him to say was May 6th, because that was when my book was coming out. But what did he say? He said May 6th. And then I thought, okay, that's bad. Bad. And I thought to myself, well, wait, I have an idea. And I said, will you come do something at NYU with me? And you said, sure, I'll do that. And I held you to it. So that's why you're here.
And here we are, thrilled to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the opportunity.
I feel like I want to double click on this idea that that's bad, because therein is both of your position on winning, which is it must be done.
Yeah.
And everything is a competition. But Bill, you knew Suzy and Jack very well, right?
Yes, had many dinners, spent some time on the golf course, and we only live a couple miles from each other in Wisconsin on Nantucket. So I had quite a bit of time to interact with them, and I went to Jack and Suzy for advice many times, and got a lot of good advice, and still do so from Suzy. So we miss Jack tremendously, but Jack was very, very helpful to me, and so many lessons that I learned. Some the hard way, but the ones that Jack taught me went a lot smoother. And hiring and firing was one of the best ones. Jack told me, when you have to release an employee, treat them the same way on the way out that you treated them on the way in, unless they've done something egregious. But if it just didn't work out, well, I mean, if they deserve to get fired, that's one thing. But sometimes things just don't work out. It's not your fault. It's not their fault. It just doesn't work. Treat them the same way on the way out that you treat them on the way in. Appreciate what they did. Show them respect. Show them compassion. It's hard for you. It's hard for them. And they have a lot of friends that are still on the team, in my case, or in the company, whatever the case might be, and that their relationship with those people will go a long way towards what you, as the owner or coach, have to say to your employees that, hey, if things don't work out, we still have a lot of respect for you, and we'll help you in any way we can outside this organization. And that's some of the best advice Jack ever gave me, and he gave me a lot.
Right now, my DMS students are saying that idea was just on the final, right? I think so.
Well, listen, we're here to explore each of your books and what they have in common. And before we get there, I actually would love for each of you to take a few moments to frame what you hope to share in the book. And Suzy, I want to start with you. For anybody who has been in your class, I think this material is probably fairly familiar.
Well, yes. My students who have taken Becoming You, almost everything in the book will be familiar, and you may even recognize yourselves in it, well disguised. Some of the story, but Becoming You is a class that I started teaching at NYU Stern, because it was a class I wish I had taken when I was in business school, and it's about how to figure out what to do with your life, which is a very hard, complex, messy question that is often simplified. It's the work of our lives, and so I started to teach that at Stern several years ago. And the class, thanks to my brilliant Stern students, evolved and elevated and got better. So what I'd love to talk about today, but I would love to hear from Coach Belichick most of all, is what I have learned in teaching Becoming You, and what I hope you might take away from figuring out how to live your purpose, which is kind of what going to school is all about, is putting together the building blocks to live your purpose. I do touch on issues that Coach Belichick, I've never really called you that Bill touches on, which is about winning and losing, and adversity and conflict and building confidence, and all of those topics. There's some overlap of what we talk about, and I think we share a lot of views on that. But that's what I'm hoping to impart today.
But so core to your book, right, is values and understanding your values and moving toward a deeper understanding of your values.
Absolutely. Right. So I have this, and I'm going to stop talking. Okay, I am.
Suzy, you can't stop talking, because the point of me.
Okay, I know, but I want,
like, you do you.
Look, there's three overlapping circles: your values, your aptitudes, and your economically viable interests. And the hardest of these is your values. And so a lot of the work that we do in Becoming You is uncovering what your values are. I was so interested, Bill, when I read your book, is that you don't talk a lot about values, because when your elite athletes arrive at your doorstep, they know what their values are. And among them are achievement and belonging and so forth. But my students and the general population that is not elite athletes is in a lifelong journey to discover what their values are. And I was on the CBS the other day, and as I was walking out, the sound engineer said to me, "Wait, how do I find out my values again?" Because this is a journey for all of us. So, yes, a value.
So in many ways, you have a map, and it is perhaps a map that many of the people you spent your career with don't necessarily need, because by the time they get to a point where they spend their time with you, they've kind of arrived at some of their own answers.
Well, that may be true, but it's very temporary. Nobody plays football for very long. So I think the values that Suzy's referring to, excuse me, Doctor. Dr. Welch is referring to. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That they have to look at those, at the end of their career, 28, 30, 31, 30, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's when the values really hit, because nobody plays football forever. I do think that it's very applicable to the student athletes or the professional athletes that I've coached at a different point in time.
That's a good point.
Than when you see them. But,
football careers are short, but so are the careers of many of our students now, given how fast the economy is changing, right? Is that we will all have to keep on reinventing ourselves, just as your athletes often have to.
The flexibility of mindset to be able to change industry is necessary for anybody, certainly. So Coach Belichick, let's turn to your book now, The Art of Winning. Why did you come to this book and this book now?
Well, The Art of Winning is the big title, but really it's lessons from my life in football. And that's really what the book is. It's lessons from my life in football. And that started when I was born. My dad was a football coach, grew up in a football family, primarily with the Naval Academy, so college football. And then tried to go into college football and ended up getting hired, then fired at NC State when Title IX was instituted in 1975. So I never did coach in college football until just recently. And pro football was great. Love pro football, but really it's my life in football. And it's not a book that's going to tell you this is how you should live your life. It's more, here's what I did, here's what I learned, here are some experiences that I had, and I try to share those throughout the book, whether it's about preparation, handling star players, bouncing back, handling success, and so forth and so on.
He says that casually as if those are just the little lessons in life. And I should say, we want everyone to be involved in this conversation. You saw the QR code. Get your questions in, and if you're thinking maybe I'll have one later, get it in now because we're gonna bring them out in about 15 minutes, and so your opportunity will close. We want you to be able to get them in.
By the way, I would like to recognize the dog pound is here. See that?
Right there. Okay, so both of these books are built on this premise of self-knowledge and how foundational it is. Bill, you emphasize knowing your strengths and weaknesses and your role within a system. You know, so much of your success as a coach came from understanding how to build a team where each person knew exactly who they were and what their role was. Suzy, you argue that becoming your most fulfilled and successful self begins with deep self-inquiry. How do you encourage, both of you, how do you encourage self-knowledge in others, and how do you nurture it in yourself?
You go first.
Doctor?
No, you. Enough of that. You can only use it one time. I tell everybody, go ahead.
Well, professional football is has some similarities to some of the elite military groups like the Navy SEALs and the Rangers and so forth. So it all starts as one big team, but we're not really all on the team because that team is going to get cut down to a much smaller number. And so you have to build teamwork. Even though we're not all on the team, you have to build teamwork. And then when we actually do have the final team, then everybody has to, know their roles, their specific duties, and how they fit into that team for it to be successful. And of course, in elite military groups like the SEALs, if there's a mistake, then everybody dies. So the consequences are a lot different. But it's a little bit the same way in a sports team that if one group doesn't hold up their end of it, then, we're all in trouble. And so football is a team of teams. So you have a field goal team, you have a punt return team, you have a goal line offense, you have a nickel defense. You have all these different teams, but it all comes together to form one championship team. And that's the idea, is to get everybody to know their role, to know how important their role is in the overall picture of the team, and then for them to do it. And so ultimately it's team, teammate, self. That's how we try to structure the team, which I learned from Tom Lynch at the Naval Academy, Admiral Lynch, shipmate, self. Teammate, self is the way we try to build a team. And of course, our individual self-achievements are very, very important. There's no I in team, but there's I in individual performance. And so without high individual performance, you can't have a successful team. So they do blend together. But the idea is to get everybody to understand their role and to be excellent in their role for the team to be successful.
Coach Belichick, I'm just curious, from your perspective in the context of a team, what would a more important talent be? Somebody who was truly a genius at football. Perhaps they were a genius at one particular skill. Or somebody who was a robust player at many things.
Yeah, you need both, especially in football. We're not talking about a one sport, one person team like tennis. I mean, you're talking about a team sport. So, you need versatility, but you also need people who are very, very good at what they do. And so if your field goal is a great field goal kicker, then you don't need to play defensive tackle. You have other people to do that. But somewhere along the line, somebody's going to have more than one job because you just don't have enough people to have multiple jobs for everybody. If you think about football, there are 6 special teams: field goal block, punt return, field, and kickoff return. That's 66 spots right there, right? Well, they all have to be backed up by somebody. So, now we're at 132. We got 11 guys on offense. We got 11 guys on defense. All right, that's 22. That's 44 backups. I mean, we're already at 200 positions, pretty close to 200 positions right off the bat, not counting hands team and other things like that. So when you only have 48-9 players and you have 200 positions that have to be filled, versatility is important. But on the other hand, you better have some players that are really good at what they need to do to be elite at that. And I'd say that's the difference between pro football now and two-way football back in the 40s, 30s, 20s, where players went both ways. They weren't as skilled, but they were more all-around versatile players because they played every play, not just specialization.
Regardless, it sounds like what is critical is that you understand what is yours to know and what is yours to contribute on the team.
Yeah, and what I always tell the players is, if you can only do one thing, you better be great at it. Otherwise, you better have a versatile skill set because your versatility is valuable.
I want to take this question of self-knowledge to you, Suzy.
Yes.
At what point do we achieve and unlock self-knowledge so that we can move on? Or
Yes.
do we not actually get there?
Okay. Thoughts. I do have one thing I want to say about what you just said, Bill, which is that students who are listening, your bosses want you to be incredibly good at your job, but instantly able to do everybody else's job. That's what they dream of. That's what they dream. When I have somebody on my team who can step into the lurch and can do somebody else's job, I love them double. Okay. I mean, and you want them to be great at their job, but be versatile as well. So just know that. All right. I think we have the self-knowledge.
Which is a good point, because when somebody asks you to do another job,
Yeah.
don't take it as an insult. Take it as creating more value for yourself, because that's essentially what you're doing.
Right.
You're just becoming more valuable.
That's right. And when you say, but that's not my job, your boss is not enjoying that phrase. Okay. They're not. They're like, they want you to want to do more and to grow. I mean, the gold, when you have a person on your team who wants to do their job and learn and do everyone else's, oh my God, that's what you want. You want that. All right. I think we have, you start and you say teammate, self, and I flip that on its head. When I talk to my students and in the Becoming You methodology, you have got to know yourself. Self-knowledge is incredibly hard, and self-awareness is almost impossible to actually score, because by definition, almost everybody thinks they're self-aware. Okay, everyone thinks it. So one of the things we do is we study and we find exercises to figure out what your values are. Almost no one knows actually what their values are. So we do some exercises, and aptitudes actually can be tested for, or the world will tell you your aptitudes. But one of the hardest messages that I have to communicate about your strengths and weaknesses and knowing yourself is that you are who you think you are. Like, I'm kind, I'm a good listener, I'm very good at X, Y, and Z. Yeah, maybe you are how the world experiences you. And maybe those two things don't match up. And so what you have to find out in the hard work of your life, and you can do it now or you can let the world tell you in time, is to find out how the world experiences you, how they experience you in terms of your relationships with people, how they experience you in terms of your ideas, and how they experience you in terms of your execution. So the getting to know of yourself, which we both agree is incredibly important. In many ways in football, the score tells you who you are, whether or not you're playing. But when we are sort of bumping along in business, we're saying, well, I didn't do very well in that job. Was it me, or was it just my terrible boss? Was it the horrible culture? Was it all these other things? Well, we immediately try to put some of the responsibility on outside forces. So part of self-awareness is actually doing this sort of very scary work of understanding how the world experiences you. That can be done. There's tools to do it. And sometimes the tool's simple as saying to somebody, I think I'm really great at execution. Am I? And actually being able to hear the true answer. So self is important, but self in the context of team and teammate.
As you're speaking, I'm thinking about how much we talk about authenticity and like that true self-knowledge, getting you to the place where you then lead as an authentic self.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Coach Belichick, what your take on authenticity is. It's such a buzzword in leadership today.
Well, I think you have to boil it down to really being able to produce what you think you can produce. And I think, Suzy brings up a good point. Players will come in and say, well, I should be playing this. I should be doing that. I should be doing something else. Well, you know what? It's really, in my sport, it's all about competition. The best players play, and they play ahead of the other ones, and the best players make the team, and the ones who aren't as good don't make it. Maybe they get better and eventually make the team and come up off the practice squad and things like that. The Tom Brady's and the Julian Edelmans and guys like that started at the bottom and worked their way up. But that's through a process of competition. And so in my world, everything is settled on competition. And competition is what makes you better. And really, I think if you once you enter that world, you embrace it. And so the best things for me have been coaching against people like Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan, Sean McVay, Sean Payton, going back to Joe Gibbs, Bill Walsh, people like that, the great coaches. Those are the ones who made me work the hardest and think about how am I going to compete against those guys? How can we as a team, handle what they're doing? And so I embrace the competition. It's what's made me better, and it's the best way to learn is to find somebody that you're competing with and figure out how you rise to their level.
Where do you stand on competition? Because it would seem like a lot of what you're exploring actually has to do with the internal competition. It's me against myself.
We do that with expectations. I think that, the reason why when I heard Bill's book was coming out on the same day as mine, I was like, bad, is because I know how competitive I am. And I was like, oh God, here's competition I wasn't counting on. But then I thought, well, we can both win at NYU. And so here we are. So, look, I think, I'm in the classroom with a lot of 20 and 30 somethings, and their views of competition are sometimes really different than mine. I'm in Bill's camp on this. I think competition is necessary. It makes us better. It's hard. It's scary. I think there is a zeitgeist that why does it have to be about winning and losing? When we test values, one of the values is around how you feel about competition, how you feel about achievement. And some people are off the charts. I almost know who those students are before they take the test, the Values Bridge test. And other people, they don't like competition. And I say, well, then don't go work in a competitive industry and don't go work in a job where you're going to be head to head with somebody in competition. And I think one of the things that is interesting about both you, Bill, and Jack was when I would say like, well, there's some people who just don't like to compete. And you would be like, really? Like stunned. And I was like, yeah, actually, there are people who want to work, and but they don't want to win necessarily. They don't want to win at somebody else's expense, and they don't think that beating somebody or getting a sale is the greatest feeling in the world. Those people exist, and you're like, really? And you're both like, do you want to have anything? Do you want them on your teams? Do you not want these people on your teams?
What you're exploring is this idea of whether or not you winning means somebody else has to lose.
I think that that's a definition of competition. It doesn't. Sometimes when you win, your whole team wins with you. Okay, so maybe you have more sales than your competitor, but your company has grown and done well, and there's a lot of people winning along with you. I would say that ultimately, this something that we call competition is not a virtue; it's a value. Okay, it's neither good nor bad. I'm a values agnostic, but I want a team of people who would like to compete because I'm a capitalist, and I'm in a capitalistic system, and everybody doesn't win equally. And I think that it'd be very hard to be a football coach and say, I don't care about winning or losing. Are there companies? I often say when I see a student who presents with achievement as a value down at number 14 or 15, I say there's wonderful organizations. They're called nonprofits. They have a need for MBAs, and I think you'll be more comfortable values-wise there. And I'm on boards of nonprofits. I love them. Thank God they exist. But you have to have a values match. It's very hard if you have high achievement and you go work in a place where nobody else cares about it. So,
yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about your approach to leadership. Bill, you have a very traditional, inevitably top-down approach to leadership. It's the leader's job to provide clarity, control, and consistency. Suzy, I think of your approach to leadership as more like inside out. If those terms exist, clarity, control, and consistency, they're on you to name and to figure out. I'm curious how you would each compare your way of thinking about this.
For me, leadership's it's very simple. When you have a team, every person on the team, whether it's the starting quarterback, the equipment manager, the linebacker coach, or whoever, if they do their job and they truly put the team first, they bring positive leadership to the team. And that job could be picking up towels. That job could be rushing the passer. That job could be returning punts. But everybody else on the team will respect their performance and respect their commitment to the team and know they can count on that person to do their job. And the people that fall short in one of those two areas, they either don't do their job well, then it's like, well, he doesn't really help us. Or, in my case, he doesn't really help us because he can't do his job. Or he does his job, but he's not doing it for us. He's doing it for himself. Those are more problematic. Now, I can deal with selfish players. I have dealt with selfish players, but you have to deal with them, right? So I've had situations where we need a receiver to go in and block a safety on a running play, And he doesn't really want to do that. He wants to catch passes. And so I could say to him, all right, well, look, you go in and block that guy, and then the next time we'll run a play action pass, and you run right by him, and we'll throw you a touchdown. Okay, I'll go block him. Not for me, not for the team, but because the next play, I can achieve success. And so there are ways to deal with those, but I would say fundamentally what you really want are people who want to do it for the team and can do their job. And if they're incapable of doing their job, then really you need to replace them with somebody that can. And you want the attitude where they're really legitimately for the team first. And that's where you have a strong team. That's what leadership is to me. It doesn't matter who you are. Of course, the head coach and the starting quarterback and the team captains and all that. But it's the same thing with them. If they can't do their job and they don't truly put the team first, the leadership's lacking.
Well, one aspect that I want to draw out from what you just said is the idea that management plays a pretty important role in that. And I think about a lesson that you had mentioned to me that Jack shared with you about like understanding somebody's motivations well as a way to be a good manager for them, right? So you understand that guy, his motivations aren't what I want them to be for my team. They don't reflect the values that I have for my team, but I can figure out how to work with him, right? How often does that come into play when you're trying to win?
I mean, it comes into play, I don't know, 10, 20% of the time. It's not 90%, but it's not zero either. I mean, it's just the reality that there are some people that are wired a little bit differently. Ultimately, you don't want that, but if they're good enough, you find a way to work with them and they can be productive and help the team. But you do it in a way so that it's not, in the end, everybody still knows it's selfish, but I'd say everybody puts up with it because of the production. It's just like your leading sales guy goes out and he leads your team in sales. He might not be the greatest guy. You put up with it until you can find somebody else to do it. And that's what Jack's got his quadrants. Jack's quadrants, there it is. All in, highly productive, give them everything they want. Not with the program, don't produce, can't get rid of them quick enough. Here's the productive ones that aren't with the program. Here's the unproductive ones that are with the program. Can you shift them into the top quadrant? If you can't, you got to be looking to replace them.
Yeah. So
Jack's quadrant.
Okay, I'll tell you, my DMS students also just heard that on the final exam. So,
Suzy, talk to us about leadership.
I'm almost afraid to because I have a view about leadership, which is I have no argument. I'm sure there's leadership in football, but in business, I think that there's this long time dichotomy that has grown up that I'm deeply opposed to. I'm going to ask my students for forgiveness here because they've heard me rant about this before, that leaders are good. They've got a halo. Leaders. And then there's grunty little managers down in the trenches, telling you what to do. And I think that it's BS, frankly. I think that that if you're a leader who's just a visionary telling people what to do from the mountaintop, after a while, everybody says there's no way we can operationalize that. There's no way we can actually do that. That person is full of BS. And then you drive them crazy. And if you're a grunty little manager down in the trenches just following orders, after a while, everybody says that person has no vision. And this is why in my class, I force my students for this 13 weeks we're together to call them managers, a mixture of leaders and managers, because leadership doesn't sound correct. So anyway, it's always leadership. And so I think that there's that leaders and managers in business are blended. So that's one thing I think, and take it or leave it. I think that if you've ever run a team, sometimes you're leading and sometimes you're managing in the same 15-minute stretch. I'll say this other thing, which is, Bill, do you remember that crazy period of my life where I was managing a music tech startup by accident? Yes, that was quite the run. I mean, there was me, and then there were like a lot of people who the oldest person was 24, and that was exciting. So, in that period, I was trying to understand how to manage musicians better. And I was reading a lot of stuff about how to manage artists and musicians because I was managing artists and musicians. And I came upon an article that said, basically, it was a band that was on the road, and this was the manager of the band, and the drummer was terrible. And they took him out and they said, "Why are you so terrible?" They took him out for lunch. And he said, "Well, I don't know what any of the songs mean, so I just sort of make up words and I go along." And then he said, basically, they said, literally, you have to tell the drummer what the words of the song mean. Well, they said it literally, but I completely take that metaphorically, which is, if you're a leader, you have to tell the drummer what the words of the song mean. You have to tell your team why you're doing what you're doing. You don't have this like, you can't, as they come off the side of the field, say to them, look, I really want you to do this, because in the big picture, you just tell them what to do. But when you're a manager in a typical business setting, you have to tell people why. And I think it's even more so now with the people about the age of the people in this room. You need to know why. And your job is to make meaning for your team. And it takes time, and it's boring sometimes, and you've said it 1,000 times, and you have to do your own work, and something is blowing up at home, and your kid needs you to go, and you don't want to take the time to say, look, this is how it all fits together. This is what the words of the song mean, okay? But so to me, I don't know, I wouldn't hold myself up as a great leader, but I would say I work every day to tell my team why we're doing what we're doing. Does that make sense to you?
100% makes sense to me, because in football, you don't have time to explain anything. The clock's running. It's a 2-minute situation. The quarterback doesn't have time to tell everybody what to do. They need to know what to do, when to get out of bounds, when to stay in bounds, how deep to go, how close we need to get in field goal range. Those things are things that you practice, you prepare for, and everybody needs to know what to do. You can't count on one person to have a team meeting out there, when the clock's running and there's 15 seconds to go in the game. Well, here's what we're going to do, fellas. That's just impossible.
They know the why, because they know the why is they got to win.
Well,
right. So
the why is interesting because it speaks to motivation. And you're talking about how much you need to pay attention to motivation in what you're doing, because you are setting the course. And in the game, the course is somewhat set. But I imagine you have to think a lot about motivation in different ways.
And I do, as a business leader, have to think about motivation. I want to know, I think part of what we do as leaders is understand what makes our people tick. And, I think it's wonderful to sort of know the value. My organization, we talk openly about everybody's values. There's a value called self-care, and it's eudaimonia, it's flourishing, it's having fun, it's recreation. And on the weekends, as Friday, as my team goes off, I'll say to them, have some eudaimonia this weekend, as I wave them out the door. And I know I want to know them better and know them well. And I think, Bill, I have seen you over the years really know your players, know who they are as human beings.
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of the motivation comes on the way in. If you have, in the NFL, if you have 70 players and let's call it 20 coaches and another 10 support staff, I mean, there's your 100 people right there. There's no way as a coach or in business as a manager, you have time to motivate 100 people. Oh, let's get it going today. Oh, today's a big day here. Oh, we need you to do this. I mean, that'd be your whole day right there. You need to hire people or find people who are self-motivated, who are driven. If you don't get them on the way in, the chances of you turning somebody who doesn't care into somebody who really cares, I mean, I think those are long odds. So I go for the highly motivated people. I go for the people who love football. I go for the people who care about their team. And those people generally are they're high output people. Whatever their talent is, their talent is. But you want those people on the way in. To change them from not being that to becoming anywhere close to that is, I think, a long shot in most cases. I mean, unless there are some rare circumstances that you feel are overriding that you can correct, I think it's rare. And again, back to your point, Suzy, if you don't want to be in that competitive environment, there's plenty of other options out there.
Just not with you.
Well, in professional sports, nobody retires. Really, nobody retires. They get pushed out because somebody comes in and takes their job. That's why they leave. It's too lucrative. Almost nobody retires. It's not like college where players graduate, lose their eligibility. In pro sports, they play as long as they can because it's so lucrative. For you to take that person's job, you have to come in, outperform them, outcompete them, and actually take food off his table to put it on yours. Otherwise, he's got it on his and you're doing something else. It's very competitive. And if you don't want to be in that environment, then, there's other options. But that's what you've chosen or we've chosen. And so you might as well embrace it or find something else to do.
I love that point. In just a minute, I'm going to ask you both about discipline. But before I do, I want to make sure that if we have questions, we have a chance to review them. And here we go.
Okay.
This is the QR code. I'm sorry to the hand raise. We had the QR code earlier, but if you send it to the QR code, we may be able to get it in. But this one is for Bill. A paired question for you from 2 audience members. Mike Andel, where are you, Mike? Give us a wave. Asks, can you share a lesson in leadership your father instilled in you? So you think about that. Vanessa Burgess, where are you, Vanessa? Thank you. Asks, what was the most impactful advice your mother gave you when you were growing up that you think about even today?
Oh, done.
Okay. So your father and your mother.
Oh.
Well, first of all, let's make it an early happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
It was very well played, Bill.
Most impactful advice from my mother. It was really education. It was just, work hard in school, get a good education, do it while you can. I wish I would have listened better to that. She spoke 7 languages. I can barely speak 1. That didn't rub off. And my father was the leadership question.
Yeah.
My dad was the ultimate team player. He was the ultimate team player. He did whatever the football team needed him to do. He started off coaching and coaching, players in his position, but they at that time needed him to go out and scout the next team they were going to play. So he was never at the game that Navy played. He was always out on the road scouting the next team they were going to play. He became very good at it, elite at it, wrote a book about it, was kind of the expert in that field at that point in time. And he became very good at the role that they needed him to be in. I don't think it was what he would have chosen, but once it was assigned to him, he became great at it. So it was a great teammate lesson.
I love that. Okay, this is a question for Suzy. It comes from an NYU student. But actually, I really have this question too. The first part of the question is, what has inspired you to teach here at NYU? The second part is, how do you balance everything that you do?
Why is that a question about me? All right. So I love NYU so much, and I'm so happy I'm here. And it was a combination of a lot of different things. I had a big change in my life in March 2020 when my husband died, and I just knew I did not want to go back to broadcast journalism. I had changed. And I was wandering around in the woods of upstate New York, trying to figure out what to do. I knew I wanted to do something in the business and career space, but I didn't know exactly how. And serendipitously, an old friend who was an adjunct at NYU wrote me and said, by the way, how he checking in on me. And he said, by the way, I'm teaching at NYU now, blah, blah, blah. And I remember it was like being struck by lightning. I thought, oh my God, that's the answer, teaching. I had this idea for a class called Becoming You, which was named by my son. I had described the class to my children. I said, I think I have this class. And my son, who's 36, said, he wasn't then, but he said, I think that class is called Becoming You. And I said, that is what it's called. So I very luckily knew Dean Ragu from my previous life at the Harvard Business Review. And I found my way to his office and I suggested Becoming You to him. And he said, well, let's try it as an experiment. Okay, so the rest. Then I ended up saying, I walked into the classroom. And on the very first day, as I was walking into the classroom, I thought to myself, what in the world made you think you could do this? And but it worked out and I loved it. And that first crop of students, some of them may even be here. Although it was 4 years ago, they gave me the benefit of the doubt and they helped me along as I was trying to figure out how to be a teacher. After every single class, I had required homework that said, how'd I do? Because I was trying to learn how to do it. So I came because I was called here and I stayed because it was so much fun and I was growing so much. So thank you, NYU.
That is a great part to the answer the first part of the question, but if you have any thoughts on how you balance everything, and maybe some generalized thoughts for those of us who also have really big ambitions and want to do a lot.
Okay, so I would say very shortly, because Bill does a lot also. I mean, I am able to balance what is from the outside might appear to be quite a wacky life, because I know my values. I know my values and I put everything through that screen. And when something comes up or some opportunity comes up or some demand comes up, I literally return to my values and I say, wait, is this, because when I'm living my values, I'm very authentic and I'm happier. And there's no guarantee on happiness in this life, for sure. But I definitely know that I'm happier when I am living my values and I'm more authentic, I'm more real. And so that's how I can do it all. And I don't do it all. And believe me, there are some days where it feels like I do nothing at all. But on the days where it sings, it is because I am clear on my values, which I highly recommend for everyone.
Bill, do you feel as clear-eyed in your own values? Do you feel like they have also been a tool for you as you've made decisions?
I'm looking forward to reading Suzy's book.
I know.
I want to learn more about him.
Oh, while he takes the test, I am. You're going to take the values bridge if it's the last thing I do. And we're going to find out what his values are. I will report back.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Okay, so we have another question for Bill. This one comes from NYU student Mihir Gupta. Where are you? Thank you for this question. How would you motivate players who had the talent to be great but weren't focused enough or didn't have the ultra motivation for football that you had?
Ultimately, it's going to be hard. It's just going to be hard. There are so many players that are so motivated, so driven, even some with a little bit less talent, that will outcompete, outwork, and eventually outperform players with better talent. There just are. Some of the players that I've had, Steve Neal was a wrestler, didn't play high school football, didn't play junior high school football, didn't play college football, was a championship wrestler, lost to Brock Lesnar in the Olympics, came out for football with us, and didn't even know where the huddle was. He was like, where do I go at the end of the play? Steve, we go back here. But he worked so hard and became great. Julian Edelman never played receiver, never returned punts, was a college quarterback. He's going into the Patriots Hall of Fame next year. Those guys just outworked. Tom Brady was a fourth-string quarterback. Anybody who's ever played football, try to think of who your fourth-string quarterback was on your team. Most teams don't even have him. Some, maybe a freshman, some kid on the JV team. He was a fourth-string quarterback. He wasn't great, but he became great. He's not the most talented quarterback, but he was the greatest quarterback, and that's hard work and stacking those days, weeks, months, years together, and you can become great. So the gap in the NFL, there's a gap, but the gap in the NFL in a lot of cases can be closed or I would say exceeded by work, consistency, and training. And players that train hard and train well, longevity-wise, will outlast some of the better players who don't train as well and end up, getting injured or just not being able to sustain their athleticism that they have as a younger age. It just catches up with them and they'll pass them by. So,
but it sounds like, but the other side of that is like true talent without the discipline or desire to realize it is
great in high school. It's great in high school because they're just better than everybody else. Yeah. They're just better than everybody else, and they can get away with not being good. In college, it might go a little bit further, but eventually, once the playing field levels, it's about preparation, it's about training, it's about fundamentals, it's about consistency, and players who really are driven and work hard at that are going to pass it up. There's not that big of a gap. There just isn't.
I just have to underscore what Professor Belichick just said about preparation. Preparation. And you write about it in your book. Brady was about preparation, yes?
Okay. Another question for Suzy. This comes from Gabriella Louise. Where are you? Thank you for your question. Thank you. What advice do you have to give to a young leader who's struggling to align their personal values with the demands of their role in an organization?
All right. So, great question. Great question. Individuals have values. Each one of you, there's 15 human values, 15 personal values. Each one of you has a DNA profile of your values. I urge you to find out what they are. And organizations also have values, okay? Your boss has values. Your company and your team and your supervisor all have values. When you feel discomfort at work or in an industry, for instance, industries also have values. And sometimes people feel like, some things are really good, but some things not working. And it's about a mismatch of values, okay? So say you are really, really high on achievement, okay? And so you're really, really high on belonging, which is a feeling of connectivity and friendship. And you go and you work in an organization where they're just really not about winning or losing, and everybody's an individual contributor and they all work from home. This is a values mismatch between you and your team or your organization. And so that's what you've got to do, is you've got to first figure out your own values and then do the detective work to say, this is what the organization sometimes it's a mismatch with your boss, but sometimes it's a mismatch with the whole industry. I am often counseling students who have gotten their values back, and then we go into office hours and they say, okay, I got these values and I'm going into investment banking. And we're like, uh-oh. And so that is something you got to suss out. Don't take 20 years to do it. You can know it going in.
Mm-hmm. So. And that is a powerful play. Thank you for that. I said that I wanted to ask you guys a little bit about discipline. I want to come back to that. Bill, Coach Belichick, There were several lines in your book that I actually just wrote down, put on Post-its or on my computer. And the one that my wife then put on my bag, I think she has a message for me. It says, discipline is doing the right thing every time and not just when someone is looking. I would love your thoughts on how we instill the kind of character that leads to that kind of discipline.
Yeah. I mean, it's the shopping cart story, right? Right. Nobody's looking, who puts their shopping cart back in the, where the shopping carts go, and who leaves it out in the middle of the parking lot somewhere. I mean, that's really what it is. It's like, what kind of personal values do you have about doing the right thing when nobody's looking, when seemingly nobody's looking, and that, I think eventually is going to show itself up, but you might get away with it for a while, but in the end, it's a value. It's about being accountable, being responsible, and being a good teammate. And we have those conversations, in leadership. What I believe in for a football team is leadership starts at the bottom. It starts in rookies. Somebody leads the rookies, and then second-year players can lead some of the rookie players, and then the third-year players can lead some of the second and first-year players. And when a player becomes old enough to be a captain or that kind of thing, he's been put in those leadership roles all the way through his career. It doesn't just start when he's played in the league 8 years and then becomes a captain, let's just say. That's just not really the way it works. I don't believe in that kind of leadership. And so there's also a leadership that is, I found that when you have your best leaders involved, the Devin McCourtys, the Tom Bradys, the Teddy Bruschi's, guys like that, Troy Browns, everybody else kind of clams up and they just go with what they say, which out of respect and also out of their great leadership. And so what I found is effective is to A, have those leadership meetings, but B, get rid of the best guys. Get rid of Matt Slater. Get rid of Devin McCourty. Get rid of David Andrews. Get rid of those guys. Get those guys out of the room, and let's talk to the second layer level leaders and see what they think. Okay? And so what do you say when your teammate, throws the towel in the hamper, but it doesn't go in, it's laying there on the floor? What do you say? What do you say when one of your teammates comes in and says, we're going to go out and, smoke weed tonight and, let's go do this or whatever? Like, what do you say? What's your role in that as a leader? And those are that's real leadership. What do you say when one of your teammates comes in and is complaining about, hey, I'm not getting enough playing time, the coach isn't giving me a fair shot, whatever it is? Like, how do you handle that with your peers? And that's real leadership. Those are real questions. And if your team handles them right, you got a real strong team and you build your leadership up on that. It's not just with the top guys. I could say in any organization, any team that I've been with, I can't speak of business organizations, any team that I've been with, it's not one leader. It's not two leaders. You need a group of leaders, and you need those guys to all buy in together. And so you have like 20 leaders, not 3. Now, you might have 3 that carry the most weight, but they need help. They really do. They need help. And if you're in that organization, like I said, whether you're a rookie or whether you're the CEO, there's leadership. If you do your job and you put your team first, there's leadership from you. And that goes all the way through. And so I looked at leadership from the assistant equipment person to the middle linebacker to the starting quarterback. It's all important. And you want all those people to have that same type of commitment and attitude. But the discipline of doing it when nobody's looking, I mean, I think it's important that you talk about it and you recognize it. I'll say another thing that I've always believed in is if after we win a game, all right, we have a recognition for, let's call it, not the unsung heroes, we call it something else, but it's those guys. It's the guy who goes into the corner and gets the puck and centers it out in front of the goal, and then somebody knocks it in. Well, the guy who knocks it in gets all the credit because he scored the goal, right? But somebody's got to go in the corner and dig the puck out and do the dirty work. And so we always had a dirty work type of guy, okay, for those games. So who are the guys that really deserve to be recognized for those games? Not necessarily the star player, but like who had a tough matchup, who had a tough job, and who did it. And I'll say one of the ones that really stuck out for me was when we beat the Colts in the AFC Championship game, okay, the biggest thing obviously was Peyton Manning. And how do you get your defense ready to play Peyton Manning? And Damon Heward was our backup quarterback, and he emulated Manning in practice. And we played very well defensively in that game. He had 5 interceptions and had a big game defensively. He got a game ball. He didn't play. He didn't even play in the game. But he helped his teammates play better, and the team played good, and he had a lot to do with it. And everybody knew it. And so I think, those are the kind of things that I would say, finding the people who grease the wheel, who really make things go. The star players get plenty of credit. You know, the guys that sack the quarterback and throw touchdown passes and run for 100 yards, and they get a lot of credit. But it's the other guys that you need them to come through, and then you need to recognize them.
Yeah, that's a critical piece. Suzy, I want to circle around to you on this idea of discipline and ask where it fits into one's own career as one is managing one's career.
One thing I heard Bill say was that you don't have to actually have the title of leader to be a leader, and I think that's a great lesson for for the Stern students here, and also when you are a leader yourself, to recognize the people who don't have the title leader for the leadership things that they do. Discipline is a charged word, okay? And I think that the oldsters like myself understand that almost nothing happens without a certain amount of discipline, and maybe you have to learn that the hard way. Discipline, it shows up in preparation. It shows up in finishing what you start. I always say that there's actually ultimately in business, it's not true in football, I don't believe, but in business, there's really just three things that drive success: the quality of your relationships with people, the quality of your ideas, and the quality of your execution. And people always ask me, well, what's the most important one? And the answer is execution. In that if you deliver early and beyond expectations, and you always get it done, and you just come through it. Now, look, you need the other two. Don't get me wrong, especially the people part. You can get by without, if you have one good idea every couple of years, you're still going to be okay. But execution is part of discipline. Everyone could be a big talker, but if they don't score the touchdown, I mean, this is a problem. A player comes in and they're all talk and they don't deliver. That's true in business as well. So discipline is an integrity issue in many ways. As Bill said, I totally agree.
Folks, thank you for spending this time with us. I'm going to take so much from this conversation. I am left thinking about my own personal values of running to take Suzy's test. And this idea that Suzy may have a little something.
I have a little something. You know, we could not let Coach Belichick go without a hoodie. Are you going to cut off the sleeves and wear it?
You know it.
I almost cut the sleeves off. Oh, wait, we've got Stern hats for everybody as well. Bill, you must put yours on, you promised. And Jesse, we got one for you, too. Wait, wait.
I mean, I'll take one. Yes, please.
Oh, sure. All right. You're welcome.
Thank you.